Yep, great.
All right, greetings. I'm Jason Marion. I'm happy to be the facilitator today. I'm a professor in environmental health sciences, and I've been serving as faculty regent now for most of the last 6 years. And we have a distinct pleasure of having 3 panelists with a variety of different levels of expertise in the areas of university service. And just to kind of set the stage for where we're at, we're in the library here presenting today, and since this university or since any institution of higher education has been here and learning since 1874, service, particularly faculty service, has been at the core of what we do here. Now, the role of service among faculty has evolved tremendously from doing everything that used to be proctoring, probably the dining hall, to everything. We now have faculty who provide service in all areas of their disciplines, nationally, state levels, across the country, maybe here at the university and their departments. And there's a lot of different ways that we can look at what service is. And service, we talk about it in the university setting as a noun, like it's part of what we do, but it very much is an action. And it's an action of doing something to help others or to work with others. And we'd be interested, I think the folks on social media or that will watch maybe, or definitely people on Zoom, will be interested in learning a little bit about our panelists. And we're particularly interested in knowing a little bit about what you do with regards to service. How do you help others or take action on the campus, maybe in your discipline, also in the community or across the Commonwealth, or even across the nation or world. So I'm going to start off, throw it all the way over to Dr. Ellis, Dr. Kelly Ellis. Tell us a little bit about who you are at the university and how you're engaged with service, maybe at the campus level, within your discipline, and you're a statewide service person for higher education.
Great. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to contribute to the panel. I'm Kelly Ellis. I'm a faculty member in speech language pathology. I also serve as the chair of the Department of Clinical Therapeutic Programs, which houses the academic units, obviously in speech language pathology, but also counselor education. So in terms of my engagement on campus, I serve in that capacity of a department chair. I've also had the opportunity to serve on lots of different committees across campus, from chairing the ADA Appeals Committee to being a member of the APAC Committee, all the things that we do right on campus to support our promotion to associate and full professor. Really, I think the unique perspective that I have in regard to service is how I've had the ability to intertwine my promotion to full professor with service to my discipline and then to the state. So throughout my 14 some years here at Eastern, I've served in varying leadership roles in my profession. So I've served as chair of the state licensing board in speech language pathology. For example, I've served as president of the Kentucky Speech Language Hearing Association. I currently serve as governmental relations chair for that state nonprofit. I also serve as a site visitor for the accreditor in my field, which entails traveling to institutions across the nation to assure that they are meeting accreditation standards. And then I've also had the opportunity to serve in 4 different appointed positions by 4 different Kentucky governors on regulatory boards. Currently, I serve as the faculty representative on Kentucky's Council on Post-Secondary Education. And I've served in, again, other kind of regulatory boards through governor appointment. Another example would be Kentucky's Read to Achieve board, which aligns with my area of professional interest and passion.
Right, so that's Dr. Kelly Ellis. So you have to hear about a lot of remarkable opportunities for service that she's been conducting while also being a faculty member here at EKU. Our next, we'll do some more follow-up on some of Dr. Ellis's activities, but next we're going to go to Dr. Lisa Kay, our chair of Faculty Senate, but among many other hats that she wears at the university and has worn. So Dr. Kay.
Hi, I'm Lisa Kay. I'm from the Department of Math and Statistics. I've been at EKU a really long time. And I have served in a variety of ways at different levels. I've served on a ton of departmental committees and chaired some of those. I have served on some college level committees. At the university level, I've served on the general education committee. I used to serve on the ADA Disabilities Awareness Committee. I think many years ago, I served on a committee that was related to kind of the precursor to FCT&L. I can't remember exactly what the name of that was. I served on Faculty Senate in an earlier term, and then came back and served as vice chair, and I'm currently finishing up my second and final term as chair. In the profession of statistics, I have served as an officer for Mu Sigma Rho, the National Statistics Honorary Society, for over a decade. I'm currently past president, so I'll be wrapping that up in the middle of next year. I am currently the chair of the section on statistics and data science education for the American Statistical Association. We'll have, I guess, one more year on the executive committee for that group as past chair next year. So this is kind of my busy year for that. I'm also really enjoying serving on the steering committee that is revising what's called the GAZE guidelines, which are basically the guidelines for teaching introductory statistics. And so that's been a lot of fun, a lot of work, but a lot of fun. In the community, a little more limited. I have, some of you know me, and you know that I have a complicated home life because my youngest daughter has a neuromuscular disease. But I have been known to take in a lot of stray cats. And also when I was on the ADA Disabilities Awareness Committee, I did do a little bit of work with the Special Olympics.
So yeah, Dr. K is, like Dr. Ellis, stays busy, but we're fortunate to have folks like Dr. Ellis and Dr. K being so busy. And we're also fortunate to have with us Dr. Jim Blair. Dr. Blair, I think may still be one of our newest associate deans, or the newest associate dean at the university. So tell us a little bit about, the types of service you do now, as well as the types of service you did while you were a member of the regular rank and file like us. So.
Yeah, for sure. Jason, I'm only assistant dean. I haven't gotten up to assistant. Yeah. I appreciate the early promotion.
Yeah.
But like Jason was saying, I really enjoyed my role, my new role that I've had, but also my role as a faculty member to be able to give back and provide that service. Some of the things that I've been involved with at the discipline level is I serve as an associate editor for the Journal of Consumer Marketing, as well as the IIM Ranchi Journal of Management Studies. I'm also on the editorial review board for the Journal of Consumer Behavior and for the Journal for Advancement of Marketing Education. I found those roles to be really rewarding, and we'll probably talk a little bit later about how that informs research as well and can help increase your research productivity. I also serve as a fellow for the Direct Selling Education Foundation. And I'm also involved with another marketing group called the Society for Marketing Advances. It's one of our academic marketing associations where I'm the director of academic placement. So kind of like our job fair that we have, and then I'll be president-elect. I'll be serving as president in 2027. So that's at a discipline level. I would say at the college level, I'm involved with a number of different committees and activities. I really enjoyed representing the College of Business as faculty senator. I found that to be a really rewarding experience, and then serving as vice chair last year. I also serve, we have, they're called councils instead of committees. They're more of like a long-term strategic focus that we have within the College of Business. So I'm part of our Student Access and Transformation Council. Basically what we do there is try and find different initiatives we can do within the college to help retain our students, like encourage them to persist through their education, and then also help with recruitment efforts. So even today, I know Gil was talking about earlier, we have the Future Business Leaders of America high school competition on campus. We've got high schools from all around the state and the region coming into campus and seeing our facilities, seeing what it's like to be a business major. And then as far as in the community goes, I do a couple initiatives. I think with Madison Young Professionals is probably one of the more active ones that I've been with. It's a local networking group, and I encourage like anybody on the call or watching the recording to check them out. It's a 40 and under group where basically you can network with professionals within the county. It's been very beneficial for me to find like business partners and relationships for students to do like business projects on, whether it's like consulting work or like creating marketing plans or doing volunteer work or connecting them with internships. And then in addition to that, I volunteer at my church as an usher and a few other activities at Our Redeemer up in Lexington.
All right, excellent. So that's a little bit about our panelists and the different kinds of involvement that they've been in. Now, the next question is kind of getting at the why. Like the why do you do what you do? Like, you know, Eastern Kentucky University, we're a civically engaged institution. We also prioritize education. Now, our faculty come from a variety of backgrounds. Some may also be scientists or artists. You know, there's all kinds of different other, you know, professions that our faculty bring on top of being educators. So why do you do what you do? Like, why do you do the service that you do? How does the service particularly impact your teaching, your scholarship, or your research, or your creative endeavors? Why do you do what you do? So I don't know if anybody wants to chime in first.
I'll start. I mean, I think why I engage in service is probably just that I love my profession. I love the work that I do as a speech language pathologist. I love the clinical side, the research side, and ultimately I like the thought that I'm giving back to a profession that has blessed me with passion and just it's fun, right? So I think it's the giving back. I think one thing that's really nice about working as a faculty member at an institution like Eastern is that you can get rewarded, right, for engagement and service if you are strategic in terms of the way that you intertwine it with your commitment to teaching, research, and service. So I've been able to kind of blend my service endeavors with scholarship and teaching opportunities. So I think, you know, one thing that service does, I think we could all agree, is it allows for you to network and collaborate across campus, but also across your discipline, whether it's the state or the national perspective. So that networking for me has led to opportunities to publish with people that I've served on committees with, to be involved in the publication of policy documents, to testify in front of legislators about proposed pieces of legislation impacting my field, to even like secure guest lectures for people that I've met across the country that will Zoom in to inform my students on maybe a new innovative technique in my field. So really, I think that networking can kind of contribute to teaching, research, and service.
Thank you, Dr. Ellis. Anybody want to add on to any of Dr. Ellis's points?
Sure. So I think for me, service is just a big part of who I am. I wanted to be a teacher even when I was a little girl. So I knew that. And then I guess when I first got here, I didn't realize how much I would enjoy the service part, although one could argue that teaching is in some respects, you know, is the, you know, service as well. But I just love it. And I think like Dr. Ellis, one of the things I love about service is that I get to work with people from all over campus. I get to work with people from all over, well, really all over the world to some extent with, you know, some of the statistics organizations and honors organizations I'm involved with. And that's just a lot of fun. I love talking to people. I love, you know, hearing new ideas from others. And I really just, you know, enjoy all those activities. You mentioned scholarship. I do some reviewing for a statistics education journal, and I'm also on the editorial board for one of the national honors journals. And so, you know, that's one way to connect service with scholarship. And I think someday when I'm gone, I sort of hope that that's how people remember me, as somebody who wanted to serve others.
All right, so we've heard a lot so far regarding like the benefits of service, and we're going to come back to that here in a second. But we've learned that by engaging in service, it's enhanced the opportunities to be involved in publications. We've heard that it's maybe informed new teaching strategies or ideas, new techniques for doing something in your discipline. So our students are directly benefiting from that service, but the networking and learning ideas from others, that networking piece of service sounds really important with regards to how our students really benefit from it. So Dr. Blair, do you have anything you'd like to add on how service impacts your teaching scholarship or your personal identity as a scholar and teacher?
Yeah, I think probably to jump off what like Kelly was saying with the networking, I feel like there's a lot of opportunities like through service on campus and through our discipline and even like throughout the community. It's kind of like getting a 2-for-1 where you're able to get introduced to new people, learn about potential collaborations that you can have, and even learn about resources that you might not know about, right? Just from exchanging that information, that contact. I know Faculty Senate was a great opportunity for me when I was in, I believe it was my 3rd year, like here at Eastern, and I was just filling in for someone. And then from there, it was like, oh, Jim, you should run your 4th year. And then, oh, you should serve on a committee. And then as you kind of like go through that process, if you're doing some good work, I feel like, this is what I talked about with the FBLA students in the morning. I was like, if you show up, you have a positive attitude and you're eager to learn, opportunities open up. So with that networking, I think if you put those like 3 qualities moving forward, you'll see some of those opportunities. So I would definitely give a shout out to like Faculty Senate for a lot of those great opportunities. And then, Jason, one thing I was going to bring up was one thing that I don't think I have like a title or like a council or service thing for, but I find like the most rewarding and beneficial is just finding ways to like give back to our students. And I feel like some of those are like just critical conversations you have with them about like what's going on in their lives, career direction, if they're struggling with a class, right? Just to be able to be some type of like coach, guide, or mentor towards them and helping them navigate like what they're trying to do for their career or where they want to see themselves like 5 or 10 years from now can go really long ways. Because I know students, that's something in my new role, I don't have as much interaction with them like I did in the classroom and I'm stopping by during office hours, but I feel like those can be the most impactful when you're having some of those one-on-one conversations with them and guiding them moving forward. And then I would also say when you were talking about research too, Jason, like if you are trying to get involved with some type of service activity with a journal as like an associate editor, if you reach out to an AE or an editor and told them, hey, I would love to review for your journal, I think most of them are going to come back and say, yes, let me know your qualifications, your expertise, and if we've got an article that's a match, we'll send it your way. Now, when you get that, you need to make sure that you're submitting that on time. I would even recommend submitting it a few days early to set a good standard for them. It doesn't need to be like weeks ahead of time, but just like 2 or 3 days before the deadline, aim for that as your internal deadline. But if you do a good job, then they're going to send you another paper, and that's what leads to those editorial review board opportunities, associated editor opportunities. But then what we were talking about earlier too, it helps inform your research because now you're staying up to date with your field. If you're more quantitative, you learn about newer statistical methods that are out there. And I think it has helped inform my research and keep me up to date with what's happening in my areas, my discipline too.
And you brought up a point, Dr. Blair, about engaging with students and making time for those conversations with students. And that got me thinking a little bit more. We're going to zoom in a little bit more on this, how service connects to your university life as an educator and where it might blend with service. Do any of you all have opportunities where your students engage with your professional associations and their discipline only because somebody knew about ways for those students to engage? And what form of service is that to your professional society? Or have you worked with students on professional organizations and used your role as a person who's serving to connect them to it?
I can speak to that. So I serve, as I mentioned a moment ago, as governmental relations chair for the Kentucky Speech Language Hearing Association. So part of that work in service to my profession included writing a grant to give funding for students to go to the Capitol to advocate for our profession. So that was a fun opportunity for me because I could serve my profession, but I also got to take EKU students with me up to Frankfurt and kind of learn about the significance of professional advocacy. So it was fun to introduce my students to the professional organization that I hope they will lead, right? When I get tired of doing this stuff, so.
Any of you had opportunities to engage your students with service or extracurricular activities because of the organizations that you work with?
Well, Mu Sigma Rho is really geared towards students. You know, we initiate students every spring who qualify for the National Statistics Honorary Society. And so there's that. I've also been involved in working with students, you know, who have presented panels at the conference for the National Collegiate Honors Council. Actually, just this week, we had a membership social for the American Statistical Association to try to recruit student members. And so then while that doesn't necessarily get them heavily involved in that organization, it at least gets their foot in the door, and they get communications from the organization, and hopefully they'll continue that after they graduate.
And I think, in addition to like the research, that's a great way to introduce them to doing research, but then also these professional associations and even career opportunities afterwards with grad school, and like what could a master's degree or doctoral degree do for you? I would probably go back to one that I've gotten students involved with Madison Young Professionals, the networking group. That's something back when I was teaching, I would have the students have an extra credit opportunity where they would go to one of those lunch and learn networking events. They'd have a guest speaker that talked for about like 25-30 minutes. And then the last 30 minutes would be general networking. So I gave an extra credit assignment where you go do a one-page write-up, talk about what the main speaker talked about, who are three professionals that you met, what do they do, what did you learn from them? And since that was something that I went to and I was heavily involved with, I just wanted the certain students to go there to learn something, see why it's important to be involved with your local community, why it's important to be connected with those professionals. And I would even tell the students afterwards, I saw you were active networking, you were paying attention to the guest speaker, you don't have to write the paper, because the main takeaway I want them to get from it is once they get their professional jobs, wherever they end up, being a part of a chamber of commerce or a networking group and getting your personal brand out there is going to be very impactful, as well as the opportunities that come from that networking.
Excellent. So we're going to move on to the next question, which builds off of those prior ones, and it's probably core to a lot of a core question for a lot of assistant professors looking at maybe getting tenured at the institution, or maybe an associate professor seeking, an assistant professor seeking a promotion, or an associate professor seeking a promotion. How do you take your service activities at an institution where we do so much teaching, and there's a lot of focus, it seems, at a lot of the departmental, promotion and tenure committees on teaching and scholarship? How do you bring this service component into that? How do you track it? How do you describe it? How do you discuss it? Or how do you integrate it into a promotion or tenure application? And some of you all have experience because you've served or led promotion and tenure committees, or do it for the department. So how can faculty integrate what they're doing for service into that promotion and tenure process? And how should they plan for that?
I think the first thing I would say is read your promotion and tenure policy very carefully and through the lens of looking at what you've done and where your story fits into either the matrix or the description of the expectations. I think if you're, and I know it seems common sense, but if you're very knowledgeable of the policy document, then you're most of the time able to make your work fit somewhere. Where I see faculty struggle is when they don't really critically read the policy document. So I think that's what I would say first. And then I think being very organized, at least in my college, with artifacts that would support, whether it's an email or a brochure that you published, or documentation to support your involvement, as well as in that narrative, being very specific about how you contributed and giving lots of information about what your role entailed. Because, right, promotion and tenure committees look at so many things across many diverse professions. I think giving a good frame of context, frame of reference is helpful for the reviewer.
That's almost exactly what I was going to say. I think that would be my top recommendation too, is make sure you have read your departmental guidelines, because that is really, what you're going to be compared against. And I would say when you write things up, look specifically at what the standards are for service and say, this is how I meet them. And some documents are going to be clearer than others. And I would add that it's a good idea to talk to your chair or other senior faculty. Maybe you have a mentor in your department, who can give you some more advice, especially if maybe, you don't understand exactly what the guidelines are saying, or, you're not sure if something counts or not. I will also give you one quick example of, maybe something that could be used for service and possibly, possibly a way to sort of count that, in scholarship. I have done statistical consulting on campus. Sometimes I've done it just kind of on the side. And one year I actually served as our director of our statistical consulting center. And so the consulting piece is really service. But, if someone asks you to, say, write up the results section of, of their paper, you can say, okay, I can do that. Could you, include me as a co-author? And then, of course, obviously that could count under scholarship. So, I think thinking strategically about those kinds of opportunities is also a good idea.
I would echo what was said earlier from the panelists, making sure that you're familiar with like your P&T guidelines. But I would also probably add, if there's any opportunities where there's something that you're passionate about and it aligns with like what's in that P&T guideline, those are the ones that are going to be the most rewarding and you're going to have the most impact on, because you're looking forward and seeking those out. And I would also say if there's any opportunities for like a 2-for-1, where you may be giving back in some way with service, but then like Lisa was saying, you're also able to get a research article out of it, or maybe you're able to give back in service through some type of service learning experience through teaching. Maybe it's a classroom project where you're helping out with a charity or a nonprofit organization. So those can be great ways to like increase your productivity and then also do something that's meaningful and impactful to you too, while helping out the organization as a whole.
So yeah, and I, as a state science fair director, I love the fact that I get about 150 faculty judges from around the state. And one thing that they ask me for all the time is a letter to document their service. And I am more than happy to give any of them a letter if they want me to give them a letter, because I know that for some of them, that's an important way for them to engage and show their support. And, that gets at kind of the next part, though, is how do we find service opportunities and obligations? And I'll just say, in many cases, like with that, there are people out there looking for folks willing and able, and it's more and more difficult in society now, with so many time demands and job requirements for a lot of folks to find people willing to participate. And I find at the state level, I'm on a couple boards, the state, water and wastewater board, and it's quite common that Eastern Kentucky University is well represented on a variety of our state level boards, more so than the other institutions. And even the president of Convocation last year spoke about that. So how do you, how would one know how to apply to be on a state board or a state commission, or maybe assume an influential role that presumably would reflect well upon you as a faculty member, but also reflect well upon Eastern Kentucky University? So at kind of the outside of the EKU, how might somebody get involved in a national role or a state level role or on a state board? So be curious, how you all done what you've done.
I think just staying informed, right? Like when I applied to be on the Council on Post-Secondary Education as faculty representative. I think it came through an EKU Today email alert, like, looking for faculty representative. Similarly, roles that I've had within my national accrediting agency have come through emails looking for volunteers. So I think, being mindful of consuming that information, but also being persistent. I've applied to way many more boards than I have secured appointment on. So I think, approaching it with intentionality is also important. It's kind of like the peer review process. Don't give up if you're turned down the first time. Yeah, that. And then I think, at least in my field and fields similar to mine, there are opportunities on small committees that eventually then grow into perhaps the ability to elect or be elected as more of like the executive leader. So starting small, with our state association, like serving on the convention planning committee, then you're on, on people's radar of having a heart for service, and then you can eventually run for an elected office.
Any other?
No, I'm actually not aware of, too many like board kind of opportunities for statisticians. But I would say, with regard to some of the positions I've held at the national level, I think, you just start small, you just get involved in organizations, and as you do, learn about more opportunities. And I think that, sometimes just getting involved in one thing may actually lead to opportunities that you hadn't anticipated. Many years ago, I had the chance to invite a very well-known statistics educator to campus to be our Wilson Endowed Chair. So Dr. George Cobb came in the spring of 2011, and he loved it here. He absolutely loved EKU. And I noticed that after that, I started getting invited to do more things. and so I thank George for, a lot of the opportunities that I've had at the national level to participate in things such as, serving as an officer as V Sigma Rho. I give him credit for that. And sometimes you sort of stumble into things. Like I'm currently serving as chair of the section on statistics and data science education for the ASA. And I'll be honest, I didn't think I would get it. I knew that the person who was trying to find people for the slate was having difficulty finding someone else to run, and they had to have, a minimum of a couple people to do that. And I said, sure, you can put me down for that. And now I actually get to do it. So I think, just stepping out, putting yourself out there and trying some things, will lead to opportunities.
Absolutely, and I'd echo what Lisa and Kelly were saying. I think just starting off small and making sure that whatever task you're given, you're just doing it well or to the best of your abilities goes a long way. Because even with the group I'm affiliated with, the Society for Marketing Advances, when I first started attending the conference, I volunteered as just a reviewer for the conference papers, and then it was like, oh, Jim, do you want to be a session chair? And then, well, you've been helping out with session chair. Do you want to run the teaching moments? And then from there, it's like, oh, you want to join the executive board and do the academic placement services? And that went really well. Do you want to run for president? So with that, I think you start building like your name and your reputation and quality of your work, but starting off small. And if you're not sure of those opportunities, I think just even reaching out to some of those people who might be, whether it's on the board or affiliated with the group or the editor, and just reaching out and seeing if there are any volunteer opportunities. I think most of the time, those people in those positions, like Jason was saying, they are actively seeking or looking for those. And if you don't hear back from the first one you try for, go for the number 2 or number 3 on your list, and just keep going from there.
Yeah, so it's not like reach out. We also, mentioned EKU Today as an opportunity sometimes to see and learn about opportunities. So sometimes you can't read every EKU Today, but you get a time at the end of the week, you might scroll through some and say, oh, I missed that, but oh, this one I can still do. So we talked a little bit just now about national opportunities. let's bring it down, locally. You know, what's the importance of university committees and even faculty senate, and faculty senators, and how might people get involved in, university level committees, or faculty senate?
I think talk to your chair about university service. I think as a beginning faculty member, hopefully your chair will guide you with committee involvement at the college or the department level. That's perhaps the less time intensive at first, so that you get oriented to academic life. Then as you approach tenure or promotion, asking for recommendations on what type of university committees exist, those that align with your interests, and then kind of going from there. I think seeking guidance always is helpful, at least for me. That's the plan that I took. Yeah, and then I don't have a lot of experience, no experience with faculty senate other than reading the minutes. So I will defer to the experts here in the room.
I will note that there is a list online of university committees. I know they were working on that in Slate, so I don't know if it's totally complete now, but you can go in and look at that and see, what you might be interested in. And you could reach out to the person who's in charge of that committee and see if they're looking for anyone to serve. As Dr. Ellis noted, going through your department chair is also a good idea. I think, Faculty Senate is a great place to meet people from across all campus. And it's a good way to get some university level service. I will note that, for those who are not tenured, there are sometimes some contentious issues that Faculty Senate has to address. And I'm sure Dr. Blair remembers this well, but maybe a couple of years ago, we had an entire committee that was untenured, and they were dealing with maybe some sensitive topics, and they were all afraid to speak up. So I would say just keep that in mind and understand that there are other university level opportunities for service besides Senate. If you feel like you might be hesitant to speak up if something, were to come up like that.
I think too, like as you're seeking out some of those university committees, I think like what Kelly was saying, talk with your chair or someone, maybe like a senior faculty member. And a lot of times they may be able to give you some really good advice as to these are some good ones to maybe get you off the ground and started. And these may be ones better for like later on in your academic career. And also having that conversation to let them know like what are your interests are, how do you want to make your impact on the university can be really helpful too as to guiding that discussion.
Right now, we've talked a lot about service opportunities, and this is one that I remember being in a similar session in the Keene Johnson building many years ago. And some folks, a lot of our faculty, they're faculty because they were often exceptional, academically in a university environment. And part of that being exceptional in some cases would be that they were involved in a lot of things. And now they're at a university where there's a lot of people who are involved in a lot of things. There's a lot of people coming to us saying, hey, we'd like you to be involved in this. And some of us have a hard time discerning what to do or what not to do. Do you have any guidance or input on how faculty may decide what to agree to and what they should say no to, or how they could say no or get help to say no? Because we are here to still teach and do research, and people have families, and there's more to the world than just your job at EKU. So how do we discern what we do and not do and get help in making that decision or making our proclamations of what we're willing to do and not do?
Yeah, I could use some help with this myself, I think. I think one thing that I'm really trying to lean into in terms of knowing when to say yes or no is to listen to myself, like my self-assess, my level of stress, my level of productivity. How much of the week do I feel overwhelmed? How much of the month do I feel overwhelmed? Am I seeing a decrease in performance in my own teaching evaluations? In my students' learning outcomes? Like, are they, doing poorly on projects that typically they don't do poorly on? And using kind of these indicators to let me know when I'm at my capacity. I'll be honest with you, I feel like I'm near capacity a lot. And so I'm struggling with that myself. I think, there's wisdom and kind of talking with people that are on the same route as you, whether it's another faculty member, for me, another department chair. Also looking at indicators with my own children and my family, are they expressing, Mom, you're never here, or you're gone too much. Usually they give me feedback, but then I can say yes, no more, right? Because it's impacting other parts of my life. Yeah, and then I think in terms of how to say no, just don't be afraid to say no. I think when I've asked my faculty to do things and they've said no and they tell me why, I actually respect it, and I'm like, oh, okay. I'm thankful that they felt comfortable enough to express that they were near capacity themselves. So, you got us, because I need help in this area.
I'm the absolute worst person to ask about this. I am terrible at saying no. I think that, when it comes to picking and choosing what you're going to do, I like to focus on things that I feel I'm good at and things I'm going to enjoy. And I, generally, if I focus on those two things, then things are mostly okay, although sometimes, I'd say probably all of us feel overwhelmed. But I will give you a couple of examples of times when I have said no. And maybe that's all I have, but I'm going to have a couple. At one point, I was asked to serve on a committee for a national organization that would regularly read book reviews and then use those reviews to determine which books should go on, what they call their basic library list. It was supposed to be a resource, to professionals. And I think we got a new group something like once every 2 weeks. And, the turnaround was expected to be probably about a week. And after serving for 3 years, I realized it was hard for me to do that, just to keep that pace up. And I would feel guilty because I was the only statistician in the group. So if there was a statistics book and they wanted my input, if I was behind during that one batch, then, I felt bad. So when they asked me to serve another 3 years, I said, no, thank you. I think, I think you all are better off without me at this point. And then just recently, actually, I was asked to do a site visit for a program review to be an external reviewer. And as exciting as that sounded, it was going to require travel. And my youngest daughter requires care overnight, and I'm already gone for 2 or 3 conferences a year. And I knew that that was going to be hard on my husband. And so I said, no, I'm really flattered, but I think I should not take that on.
Similar to Kelly and Lisa, I think I struggle with saying no as well. And I think a lot of times when you're doing really good work at service, more just keeps getting thrown at you. So it can be difficult to say no. I think though, like what Lisa was saying, or find things that that you're good at and you're passionate about can help guide your direction as to what you want to say yes to. But sometimes you will get approached by even a higher up or somebody that may have influence over you. And I think what I found to be somewhat effective in those situations is if that's an opportunity where you want to take that, you can say yes. But if it's going to lead to what Kelly said, of you being overwhelmed or burnout, you can say, yes, I'll do this, but I need these couple of things off my plate. So that doesn't always work, but it at least signals to whoever your supervisor is to that, hey, I'm willing to do this. Right now, I'm just feeling overwhelmed with everything, or I wouldn't be able to manage all these tasks. This one also needs taken off, or these 2 things to be able to equal this one larger project or committee or whatever it might be. So If there's opportunities for that where you feel like you're bogged down from one of them because you're not as interested in it or not feeling like you're doing much of an impact, that might be a way to get that rotated off your plate.
And as a facilitator, I'm still going to weigh in a little bit on this because one thing that stuck with me that I learned from you know, the Hal and Charlie show, the prior teaching and learning center was, if you need help saying no, you might have peers like an assistant dean that's in your college or a department chair, and you can go talk to them and say, hey, you know, I'm really struggling to do all these other things. And I got this request and they're suggesting that I should do it. And yeah, I'd be all right at it, but man, this is really tough. And I'm afraid it's going to affect my classes, or I mean, what else can I do? If I write back to them or like, can you write back to them? Like, or can we discuss this? Or if I write, can I include you in the CC on this? And say, you know, I've met with my chair and, you know, we're, you know, really, you know, maxed out right now on teaching and this is a difficult time, you know, maybe reach out in a year or two or do something to kick the can down the road to buy yourself some time and be able to politely say no. And maybe you'll get lucky and they'll find somebody that, you know, does that job and or does that service opportunity and is able to make the most of it. So don't be afraid to ask your chair or your assistant dean or somebody that's in your area that can help you say no if you need to say no and politely step away, and maybe you can even use ChatGPT to generate your no response if it's hard for you to do it. We're almost to the end of our kind of panel questions that we want to get through. Before we get to our last question for the panel, for the group that's in the Zoom world or for the folks that are in here, if we've got any questions that are, you know, going to be formulated, you know, think about formulating a question, you might already have one. But we're going to kind of, we did the why do you do what you do? And this one, you know, might be, you know, might be something, might cover some familiar territory we've already covered, but how would having a service mindset or how has service impacted you in your professional life as an educator, as a, you know, statistician, or as a practitioner, or as a researcher, you know, as a human? How has this service and the service mindset impacted you?
Some of the response, I guess, is a reiteration from what you said earlier, but I think the service has given me focus. It's given me opportunity. In some ways, it's given me a purpose. So I think it's a powerful component of work in academic settings, and I would encourage faculty to consider it.
I feel the same way. I think that I probably already, you know, said some of the things I guess that would answer this, and that I really just enjoy service. It's just a big part of who I am, part of what I do, and it makes me happy. I love working with other people. I guess I will add that you know, a big part of it is just enjoying making connections with people and making friends. Yeah, there's the professional side of it, but these people, you know, here at EKU and outside of EKU are my friends. And so, you know, it's important to me as a person, you know, to be active in these things and just sort of, you know, share life with other people.
I think with our professions too, we have a lot of autonomy, so we're able to pick like what we're investing our time into. So that gives us a lot of opportunities to pursue these areas to give back that we're really passionate about and care about. So that can make it even more rewarding and make our jobs as fun as they can be. And I feel like we're very lucky to have the positions that we have, and the teaching is very rewarding, the research is very rewarding, but that service aspect too that you control can be a very fulfilling part of your careers too.
Yeah, so service, it's fulfillment, it's purpose, and you know, I think about our purpose even as Eastern Kentucky University. We earlier said that us being educators is in itself a form of service. EKU is in fact a significant public service for Kentucky, and the service region that we serve directly benefits from us. And while there's tremendous opportunities for improvement relative to the rest of the nation, we probably wouldn't have a middle class in Eastern Kentucky if it was not for EKU and our faculty being involved with the various community organizations, participating in community health assessments, participating on various boards, participating with just volunteering for 5Ks and just being present and being role models among their peers. And many of our faculty also come from the region too, where they can really make a difference. I'll call you Dr. Ellis, so, they're role models. So there's a lot of different ways that our faculty serve. And if you want to live a purpose-driven life, there's room at EKU for that. So there's a tremendous amount. I think our university strategic plan says that we will be excellent in all that we choose to do. So just like the university may choose to do certain things, we too at our service opportunities can have some degree of choosing what we should be doing so that we're able to be excellent in our own personal lives as well as our professional and teaching lives. So we're going to open it up to the audience that's on Zoom and in person to see if there's any questions. You can ask them to the whole panel or any particular panelist. And so any questions or
we have a question in the chat from Zoom. This comes from Greg Salmon. He asks, how does service in community roles count toward advancement? So I think that's a good question for the panel.
great question.
I think, I know that we're the College of Education and Applied Human Sciences. There is a component of the promotion and tenure matrix that allows for community engagement and service to count. So it's a component of our promotion and tenure policy.
I'm pretty sure it's something like that is listed in our document as well, but I think it's probably generally expected, that it's somehow tied to the profession. So like, for example, if we had a statistics professor who, volunteered just to keep the stats for a local sports team, for example, that's serving, but it's also related to your field. And so, I think, again, looking carefully at that document and seeing what it specifies and getting some guidance from senior faculty is important.
Absolutely. And I think like what Lisa was saying, if you can find somewhere you have your expertise matched with what's needed in the field, there's some of those like closer connections. And I know even for the College of Business, we have AACSB accreditation, and they'll look to see like how are you making impact in your community or using like your business skills and expertise to help with that.
Any other questions?
We do, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for this ideas. And so I have a question regarding how you allocate time to those different documents. So does your perspective like you have in your diagrams like specific amount of time that you need to do each one?
Yeah.
Will you repeat the question?
Yeah, so the question is maybe there should be some variation between departments, but how do departments or P&T committees kind of view the amount of time that persons could be engaged in service relative to teaching and scholarship? Is there a certain amount of time that should be dedicated? And then also, I think for the committee or the panel, how do they allocate the time in their life to do these tasks? So what's the expectation or the norm for the department or departments? And then how do you do that?
Yeah, I think there's going to be variation across departments and likely even colleges in terms of how much weight, so to speak, service represents in an overall promotion or tenure application. I think in terms of how I find time for it, honestly, a lot of it is evening, it's weekends, it's when I'm not teaching my classes. I don't teach on Fridays, so a lot of times I'll do service work on Friday.
That's a good question. Yeah, I agree with Dr. Ellis. I'd say that the departmental documents are gonna vary a lot there because like for ours, it doesn't state things in terms of, you know, the time you spend on these activities. So for teaching, we have, you know, numerical standards for, the, student evaluation, student opinion of instruction, and also peer evaluations. And then we have a point system for scholarship. Service is maybe a little less clearly defined, but we have a list of potential activities. And there are some things you're expected to do, and then here's some other things that you could do that would count towards service. You know, so it's not really, you know, stated in terms of time. About how do you find time to do these things? I am an unusual example. I'm probably, you know, a terrible one to follow. My youngest daughter requires an intense level of medical care. And so, you know, even when we have regular nursing care, it can be challenging. And so a lot of parents of, individuals with this particular disease, spinal muscular atrophy, a lot of times one of the parents doesn't work. And in our case, my husband and I both decided that we wanted to keep working. And so in order to do that, I have made choices. So we don't really do a whole lot of vacations. I hardly ever just sit and watch TV. I have the TV on while I'm up late at night listening for my daughter and working. And you know, if sometimes even on holidays, I might take papers to grade or something to work on. I work on weekends, I work on evenings, I work in the middle of the night, and sometimes I don't get enough sleep. So I am not the best example to follow here at all. But I think, you know, you make time for what you want to do. I enjoy my job. I want to do it. And so I have figured out what works for me.
And I think too, taking a look at the different service opportunities, there's some that are like low time intensive, like helping out at the college business welcome tent at the like football game where we're getting recognized, right? That's just a couple hours before the football game versus maybe serving on a search committee is going to be more time intensive where you're doing like the Zoom interviews, looking through resumes, doing the like on-site visits. And then if you're going to take on a larger leadership role, like organizing and running a conference, right? Which is going to take months and months of planning and organizing to get set up for. As far as like the time management goes, Jason's actually caught me doing this several times. I mix sometimes like my service with like what I enjoy doing. So when I'm reviewing journal articles, I'm a big sports fan. I will go to some of like the EKU basketball games or the baseball games or softball games, and I have my journal articles that I need to review. So during like the halftime or timeouts or something, I get a few pages done, go to the next page with the next timeout and things like that. So everybody's got different things they're passionate about or they enjoy, right? So if there's kind of some ways where, you know, there's like downtime, but you're still able to do the fun thing that you like to do, there may be ways to kind of increase that efficiency because like Fridays are my like research Fridays for the most part, but I feel like sometimes like the service creeps in and maybe it's only going to be like research Friday afternoon, service, you know, Friday mornings. But whatever you do with your like time blocks, that can be helpful as well.
Then, you know, we hope that some of the faculty here are also, a major part of the future that they would want the university to become. And it might be that there's various forms of service that may be spelled out in policy, but those policies can be changed. If you think the policies aren't relevant for what's good for your department or good for the university, policies can be changed. And there might be like departmental committee requirements where people are just on a committee that's not particularly useful or productive or doing something that adds any value to anything other than it might be a line on a CV. Is that really necessary? And, you know, there are a variety of activities that faculty need to be on for our students. our student organizations often need, or many of them need, a faculty advisor. And some of those can take considerable amount of time, more than what might show up as a line on a CV. So being able to write a narrative about that, you're advising a student organization and giving a lot of time. I mean, shoot, you might even think about asking the student organization, like, hey, if you wanted me to stay as an advisor, I need something like a piece of paper or something, a letter, thanking me for my service, or a certificate or something that could help a committee understand the importance of that kind of work. And don't underestimate the importance of outreach to populations, especially in the current world that we're in, where faculty can really play an important role in mentoring student organizations, or be out in the community doing outreach activities that might be showing students that they could become a scientist, or they could become a health practitioner, or they could become an artist. And we have to be able to reach out to all populations, even if the government says something like underrepresented or socioeconomic is not allowed to be said. Those forms of service, are vital to who we are as a university, and ensuring populations that are here at the university feel welcome and included, and know that they can have faculty mentors. And that should fall on all of us as faculty, but for some faculty from those communities, those forms of service sometimes are not always well documented and departmental P&P policies, and are really important to ensuring that all of our students are able to have an equal opportunity to be successful and feel like they belong here. So if that kind of language isn't in your policies, it's okay to have that conversation at the departmental level to say, hey, we're serving these populations of students, and we're doing recruitment, and we're getting students into the program that may not have saw themselves as a college graduate. And if we weren't out there doing that service, who would be doing it? And they may not be here. So, is it important that I'm on this, departmental committee for this really mundane thing? Or can I get support for like this because it's what I'm passionate about? So with student organizations, you got to be careful though, because some of them will drain you. I mean, they'll keep needing you for a lot of other things. But that's why we're here. So that's I guess it's a slippery topic, but it's an important one. So it's a great question. I saw there was another one that came in on the chat there.
Yes, we do have two questions in the chat, so we'll start with the first one. This question comes from Patrick. How does the panel categorize or think about the mentoring of honors students?
I think we've had a few honors mentors. I've done a little bit of it.
Yeah, I've mentored a few honor students, and I think that with regard to P&T guidelines, that's going to depend on your department again. How they do those things, and if they may consider that service unless you get a publication out of that, or maybe you do a presentation with the honor student. So again, I think you've got to go back to that departmental document and possibly talk to your chair or other senior faculty and see how that's viewed, because I think that's probably going to vary. Would you all agree?
Yeah, we count that as service in the college business, and I think that can be a great like 2-for-1 where you're getting research and
Right.
you're giving back to a student to develop them. But I think going into Lisa with like clear expectations for that student of, hey, this is what the outcome needs to be. Like, you're not only going to be doing the honors thesis, but we're also going to be presenting this at a conference somewhere else, or we're going to get a conference proceedings out of this, or maybe we'll submit it to a journal article. And Patrick, the other thing besides honor students is a lot of programs have like grad students, whether it's like the grad assistants, or even outside of, if you're teaching one of the master's level classes, or you have a doctoral program and you see some promise in a student, reach out to them, let them know there's opportunities to do an independent study with them, which would be very similar to an honor structure. And then the other resource that's really nice too is just across the street over here, we've got Model Laboratory School. They actually have senior research projects. So I'm working with a student now, and I think Seth is my fourth one that I've worked with. The student I had last year, Tanner did an outstanding job with this project. We submitted it to a conference, got accepted. There was a special issue linked to that. We just submitted our, after a minor revision, submitted again. So he's gonna probably get like a peer-reviewed publication out of this from like a well-respected journal. It's an 8% acceptance rate in our field. So you'd be amazed at what those high school seniors can do, what I think our honor students can do, and master's level students. So tap into that because it's a great way to get them interested in research, but then also help with your publication stream as well.
Yeah, and I think for sometimes when I'm mentoring students who want to have a research project, now the honor students might be a little different, but I've had a few that have come to me that they want to go on to med school or they want to do something, they feel like they need to do that. I have to sometimes tell them, like, if you're engaging in scholarship or some sort of activity like that with me, I'm not going to do it just so that you have a project that you just presented at EKU. So I'm just letting you know, if you want to work with me, it needs to be meaningful for the scientific community at large, or somebody else beyond EKU is going to need to know about this.
Yeah.
We're not just doing this just to check a box for your own learning. I said, they're having you, or you think that this is valuable, it's because somebody thought that it is valuable, that you're going to be now contributing new knowledge to the world. So you're going to have to do something that's going to give us some new insights or new observations or something. And if you don't want to do that, well, you might need to find another faculty mentor. I'm sorry, but if you believe in yourself and I believe in you, we can do this. So that's what I think the scholarship angle on the honor students can be effective. And then don't underestimate the narrative describing how you work with that honor student, how much time was involved in it, and so forth.
And the second question really builds on a lot of these ideas and might complement some of the recommendations that you've had. But Patrick asks, related to the mentoring of honor students and maybe even broader, so students, undergraduate and graduate, how can we take that relationship, or how can we take that work and push it one step further? Again, if you have any ways to kind of think through that that portion of the question.
Right, input.
Well, if it's an honor student, you know, the program takes a limited number of students each year to the national conference to do presentations. You know, some of them do posters, some of them do other forms of presentations. So that would be one opportunity.
Great point.
But certainly if it's something related to your field, then, you know, I think as you know, some of the others have suggested that, you know, you might have other options, right? You know, conferences related to your field or publications.
I think too, just setting the expectations up at the beginning, and I would just make sure that you're letting them see like all of these other opportunities and not just like, okay, I'm gonna do what I need to do to hit the bar for like the honors thesis. Like you could be doing so much more with this and letting them know the opportunities with like graduate school or investigating this interesting problem and how it could impact like the industry or the area that you're working on. So have them like think bigger, because even if maybe the data doesn't work out where it can hit like a really, you know, good publication, or maybe it's not conference level, you can always like draw those expectations back or run another study or help guide them to like revise what they need to do. But it's a lot harder to build it up afterwards if they've got like a lower bar that's set.
And then one additional area would be the acronym is UCRE, and the website, I believe, it's a little bit better than it was a month or two ago. But it's the University Research or Undergraduate Research in Creative Endeavors. And Dr. Mike Lane, and before that, Dr. Jonathan Gore, they were really good, and they're still good about providing opportunities for undergraduates to present locally. Posters at the Capitol was just last week. We had a dozen EKU students there. That's a great opportunity for honor students to apply. We have University Presentation Showcase. And then several of the colleges also have their own showcases, but sometimes their schedules are a little tough. A lot of those presentations are often oriented towards the spring semester if they're on that schedule. And then there's also opportunities on that website for several students went to the National Undergraduate Research Conference or something like that at Harvard. And then there's money available up to like $500 for those students. So just giving them that website and saying, here's some of the possibilities might get their creative juices thinking a little bit bigger or a little bit, you know, more grand than just, I've got to do a paper for Dr. Coleman and present it in the library. So if it's more kind of like, we want you to be part of the community of scholars. Like you're not too young to get started. I work with science fair kids sometimes. Some of them are bright, some of them publishing papers in middle school, high school. I mean, it's incredible that, just getting them to see the opportunities. I think it's a great question. Some students are up for it and some are going to be like, no, I got too many other things going on, or I don't believe in myself to get it done, or something is, in the way, a barrier. But sometimes if it's money, $500 to buy supplies or something, those opportunities might be there, so.
Yeah.
One more thought, the National Honors organization also has an undergraduate journal. And so it's called Eureka, but it's spelled funny. I think it's got a C instead of a K, maybe. And as far as I know, Dr. Linda Frost, who used to be here at EKU, still works with that. So it would be easy for us to get, more information on it. I don't know if they ever have faculty as co-authors on there. I mean, it's very student focused, the students run it. So, but that would be a place where a student could publish something.
Great point. And during Scholar Showcase, there are a range of ways that faculty can advocate for students and to put them up for opportunities. And it can originate as a form of mentorship, but it's one of those areas that moves us into that either scholar teacher or blends the scholarship and service. I'm thinking about Scholars Tank that Dr. Blair has coordinated. Of course, the University Presentation Showcase, and I'll put in another plug for that. Patrick, the call for student submissions and their student faculty, so it's mentored research, that is open through the 17th, but Dr. Lane is willing to consider submissions after the 17th as well, given that it is it's spring break. I wanted to mention too, in some cases, faculty are involved with regional or national organizations that have student positions. And for undergraduate or graduates, that could be one opportunity as well. And Dr. K mentioned honor societies too, and EKU has two of the members of the Honor Society Consortium. It is a group of elite academic, all discipline honor societies. And I hope that faculty are aware of those honor societies and what they do. They are, for EKU, they're Phi Kappa Phi, and as of last year, we brought the Omicron Delta Kappa circle back to EKU after a hiatus. Phi Kappa Phi is mostly focused on academic achievements, and Omicron Delta Kappa is mostly focused on leadership achievements. But both recognize service, both have faculty involvement, and both have service components that span campus and community, campus and nationally. And we have been very successful, more so given the longevity of Phi Kappa Phi, but very successful in putting students up for national service opportunities, national leadership opportunities, which has also resulted in our nominees to the national organization receiving some funding for graduate school. And those are two organizations that honor societies that I would fully endorse. The ODK invitation just went out to a large number of students with at the academic level of a 3.6 GPA or above, but
that's another way to advocate for students, even if you don't know exactly who they are. Patrick, mentioning this to students increases the awareness that these are desirable organizations for students, desirable honor societies for students to be a part of.
Right. Well, we are at the point
Yes.
in our time where we're going to turn it over to Dr. Gil Hunter. But all of us, I'm going to volunteer them, you know, because I know them. We're all available. You need to have Q&A with us. I think it's Kelly.Ellis, Lisa.K, James.Blair or Jim.Blair? James.Blair, Jason.Marion, all at ek.edu, but we'll turn it over to the prestigious Dr. Gil Hunter.
Thank you. I want to thank you all so much. I know those that are on Zoom appreciate you too, and people have a chance to watch the recording of this, which is going to be useful to a lot of people. I took 3 pages of notes just on what you all said. And I did, because I think this is going to inform our future practice. So I'm not surprised by much of what you said, honestly, because the very fact that you agreed very quickly when we asked you to do this says you're a glutton for this kind of punishment, you know? But what I honestly mean is you understand the value in it. You've defined yourselves professionally by some of this kind of stuff. So this opportunity to pass it on and share that vision with others, I think is of immense value. And so we really do appreciate it. I just want to say to everybody that is watching this, do plan for April 11th. We'll be back here in the Victor classroom. It will be a session that will be hard to do online. It will be great if you're in person, because it's going to be a facilitated workshop. It is a chance for you to take whatever promotion and tenure feedback you've gotten this year and look at it to plan for changes to practice and changes to how you write your promotion, tenure, and evaluation, self-evaluation next year. And so this is a great opportunity for you to think about that feedback you've gotten and what you're going to do with it. You may have already processed it some, but now it's a chance to put it into practice in your teaching scholarship service plans, but then also in the writing you do for that. So do put that in your plans, 12:30 on 12:30 to 2 o'clock on April 11th. That'll be our last session for the faculty scholars community for this year. So I want to make sure to put that in front of everybody. And then if you haven't checked in with your mentor lately and you had signed up for the mentor part of the faculty scholars community, then certainly reach out to your mentor and have that conversation. If you've got an email from your mentor ready to respond to and you haven't responded, please do that. It'd be a great thing to cross off your list before spring break. Thanks, everybody. Thank you all once again.